Hey, this is Carl, and today we're going to unbox a statue that has something to do with love and thunder. So stay tuned. Okay, so this statue came in two boxes, and we're going to unbox the bigger one and the heavier one first. And to do that, I will magically make this box disappear first. Okay, with that out of the way, we are going to start with this box first. And I'm hoping that the base will be in this box. Okay, so we have the base here. It's quite heavy. It's very heavy actually. Okay, let's see. So we are going to unbox the Gorr God Butcher, which is a very comic accurate version of Gorr, unlike the one in the MCU. And it didn't say what number I have and the edition size. Okay, so here we have the base. We have a few heads on the bottom part of the base. We have Loki, Thor, Odin, and other Asgardian characters. And as for the base, we have this ground type base, which is colored light brown with some rocks on it and nothing else. Moving on is we have this monster that Gorr seems to produce once he put his sword on the ground. I don't know what it's called. It came broken. One of its, what do you call this thing, is removed here, but I think it's an easy fix. But the seam is still visible here. The other one, which is his ear, is also broken and should go here. Anyways, let's put this guy aside first. Take a look at the first portrait. So we have Gorr's first portrait here. Great skin tone and great paint on the teeth on his mouth. His eyes is a little bit pinkish and reddish. There we have some symbiotes here on the top of his head, and he does have this cape type of thing. And we have Gorr's second portrait. This one has more teeth showing, while the other one just doesn't have that much teeth, but the expression kinda looks like very similar in my opinion. And the sculpt is very consistent. I think it's just the mouth that's different. And we have the third portrait with Gorr putting on the hood of his cloak, I think. So yeah, I think I kind of like this portrait more due to him wearing his hood, and the face is a little bit more calm looking. And take note, all the tentacles or ears are not here yet, and I think they are somewhere in the other boxes. Okay, we're going to pick up the second box, which is much lighter. We have all the small parts on the second box, and Gorr is probably on the second layer. Yep. Okay, start here at the top. So we have, I think, the handle for Gorr's weapon, or I don't think that it's from the Necrosword. I think this is supposed to be the handle for Mjolnir. Next is we have one of Gorr's tentacles, or maybe ear. I think these are tentacles on his head. The MCU Gorr doesn't have any of this, which is too bad. And we have another set of tentacles. I don't know how many tentacles are there in here. We have yet another tentacles, but this one has more symbiotes on them than the other two. So we are going to have 3 sets of tentacles for sure. Here we have another one. I think this is the longest tentacle here out of the other 3 that I've put on the table. Okay, we have another tentacle which doesn't have any symbiote at all. And we have the second tentacle without any symbiote. I'm quite amazed how thin they are and they didn't break, while the one on the monster shadow thing came with 2 broken fins. Okay, we have this thing which is, I think, will be part of this monster thing. Not sure. It does have some textures, which is weird. So I think this is part of Gorr, maybe. We'll find out later. Okay, we have Gorr's right hand with the Necrosword. And it does have a lot of symbiotes scrolling on his right arm, which is really cool. So this isn't metal, just in case you're wondering. It's painted with something like gunmetal. Doesn't look like it's a sword actually, due to the paint, but it's okay. Okay, we have another right arm for Gorr, this time with a different kind of blade. I don't know what this blade is, and I'm quite happy it didn't come broken, because again, it's quite thin. Okay, so we have the right arm of that monster. So we're going to do that later. So we have Gorr's left arm here. No weapon, just an ordinary arm with some symbiotes. And we have another right arm with a lot of symbiotes. Seem to be probably forming the Necrosword here. Not sure. Okay. So we have Gorr here. The drape on his cloak is heavily wrapped with this white thing, so I think I need to be careful. It might actually break. So this thing, the drape on his chest going down below, is actually attached by magnet, and you can actually remove it. So Gorr's right foot does have a key and peg, which will go to the base obviously. And yeah, what else is there? Great skin tone though, and great paint. Better than I expected. Okay, so actually Gorr's fingernails are a bit glossy, which is a little bit funny. It's also painted pink. Okay, so we're going to attach this back to his chest. We have the next big thing in the base, and which is, I think, his cloak also. Okay, so you need to lift Gorr a bit because there's a key and peg here on his back. So yeah, honestly, the engineering is quite impressive. Everything fits perfectly well. Man, I'm very impressed. So there's a pretty big peg and key here for this monster thing. I guess it's time to attach him here. It's a tight fit, and I think you're going to have problems removing this guy in case you want to dismantle Gorr in the future. Okay, last item, and it's just a bunch of stuff for Gorr's cape or cloak. Okay, no broken pieces. So yeah, it does have some cloth-like textures here. Some no weathering, which is cool. And the last one will go on the front. Okay, so I'm a little bit lost and I don't know how to assemble this guy anymore, so I need to check the Facebook group on what he looks like. So I'm guessing that this part on his cloak has warped during shipping, and I need to hit blower this in order for it to fit properly again. So let's move on without that. Okay, next is we have this thing. Okay, so this is a very complicated statue to assemble. And what else? Okay, let's try out this portrait. Okay, so the portrait will not go in because I think I need to fix all the gaps here. Yeah, all the portraits won't go in, I think. They're kind of floating. Okay, so none of the portraits will go in. Okay, so after almost an hour of using the hit blower to soften up some of the stuff on the statue, especially the drapes, I was able to sort of assemble Gorr. This drape on the front, I installed it wrong and I had to hit blower it again to be able to fix it. This drape needs to follow Gorr's right foot into the back, and this drape or cape at his back is quite thick. It took me a while to use the hit blower here and to actually make it at least almost no gap here on the top of his head. And this guy here didn't do anything to this. It doesn't have any problem. The only problems I have is this part of the cape, this one here, and the one on the front. And actually this cape also has a link to this part of the cape. It does have a peg and key which you need to match as well, so I also use a hit blower for that. I was able to assemble Gorr using this portrait only. If I use the other two, portrait won't sit right. And also this tentacle of Gorr or his ears is very loose and will fall almost instantly if it get hit. Okay, so let's continue the assembly. So we have Thor's Mjolnir here, the handle only, which will go here on the front. It does have a key and a peg and should be installed easily. The arm, there is only one left arm switch out, and apparently there are 3 right arm switch out for this, and it's actually pretty nice. They did the seam here, which is almost non-visible once the arm is installed. And as for the right hand, there seem to be a lot of switch out. We have the Necrosword here. I don't know what sword this is. I think this is just a random sword formed by the symbiote. And I believe this right arm switch out is about to transform into a weapon. Maybe the Necrosword. So again, the seam is not visible once the arm is installed. And as for the portrait, the seam is very nasty on this one. It's very visible. So here you can see the seam is very visible on 2 of its portraits, and the magnet is quite okay. Doesn't fall off if you hit it randomly. However, this switch out on the hooded portrait is very loose, and it's the one with the key, which is too bad. So it's quite disappointing because I wanted to use this portrait, but I'm quite afraid of the tentacles. And if I do use this portrait, other portraits, it won't sit properly on my statue. As you can see, the gap here is quite big. It won't sit properly no matter how hard I try. And I did hit blower it and force it, but I've reached a limit where I'm already afraid of pushing it more. I might actually break the statue. So I do want to use this portrait because of the Necrosword. Since if you do display the Necrosword like this, Gorr is sorta looking at the sword. And if I do use the hooded portrait, Gorr is like looking at a different direction and pointing the sword here. And I think it makes more sense to use this sword with this portrait. It also takes less room when using this portrait, so I might just consider this one, although I really wanted to use the Necrosword. yeah, let's do a quick measurement. So the highest point of the statue with this switch out is the sword, which is around 31.5 inches. However, if you use this other switch out, then the highest point of the statue will be just around 29.5 inches. And the width of the statue is around 14.5 inches. And the depth will be definitely deeper with this switch out at around 25 inches. However, that will change, of course, if you use the other switch out like the sword. But this one is also quite long, but not as long as this one. So yeah, to end the video, I would say it's rather very disappointing that this statue came in broken pieces and it's heavily over-engineered, making some of the portraits not possible to install. Actually, the magnets on my portrait doesn't have any contact with the body. However, the portrait is quite heavy, so I think that's a little bit okay. Although I'm a little bit scared to leave the statue as is because, like I said, the magnet doesn't have any more connection to the lower body. Almost no connection, but there is a small connection definitely. These two portraits is definitely not usable in my statue because the gap is very big, plus the nasty seams on the back, just very horrible. The video has been all over the place. I'm honestly very disappointed with the statue. It's a museum type statue, but I never realized a museum type statue could be this complicated to assemble. Because it's very hard to assemble, or a little bit hard to assemble, it gave the statue some bit of problem with fitment. But I guess the statue is still around 90% displayable, especially with this portrait on, which is okay, I guess. I've already contacted the commissioner and he said to wait for the factory's advice. I don't think that's a good news or whatever, but I do hope that they could give me something to help me fund this statue to get repaired locally. Overall, I would say the statue is still pretty good. Probably the best and only Gorr statue around. The paint is quite nice on Gorr, no problems there. However, some of the symbiotes are not painted pretty well since they are hand painted. I can see a lot of symbiotes which is not within the lines on the body, which is fine, I guess. And like I mentioned earlier, it came with 2 broken fins from this shadow monster thing. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. So that's it for me. Like and subscribe. This is Carl, and see you in the next one.